Hey folks, it's Chris with the Human Project Podcast. In this episode, we're going to talk about the freedom that is found in saying the word no. I'll reference a book called Essentialism, talk about what does that mean, what does that look like applied, and how does doing that and focusing only on what's essential free us for a higher quality of life and better fulfilled purpose. Take a listen, let us know what you think. Hey Mark.
Hi Chris.
How are you?
Good.
That was a very essential answer.
You knew what I was doing.
I think after, 8 years we've known each other, I think we've
pretty easy to read, actually.
to know each other
also, and you've studied me quite well. So.
So speaking of 8 years,
Yes.
it was right actually about the time that you and I met that I read this book called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. Fantastic book. One of maybe top 10 influential books I've ever read. And what I want to talk about today is this concept of essentialism. I think we've hinted at it before and we've referenced it and we've tied some things to it. But I want to talk about how focusing on what is essential and only what is essential is extremely freeing for us. We talked about some of this when it came to schedule and trade-offs earlier. But I want to talk specifically about this concept of focusing on only what's essential.
This book, shocking that you reference a book here. That's
I know.
Kind of the norm. But very influential book in your life. What was it that just really captured you about this book or influenced you so much?
Yeah, I think I have a tendency to jump in, or I used to actually have a tendency to jump in and say yes to everything.
Okay.
And this book helped me see what was freeing to be able to say no to. And it was a pivotal book in my life because it also was helping me do a lot of heart work too. Why am I saying yes to things?
Okay.
We've talked about partnering with God and purpose and identity and all of those things and faithfulness and trust and genuineness and all of those things over the year and a half that we've been doing this. And this, to me, is like a thread throughout all of them. And so what was really impactful with it was realizing he does a diagram in the book. And it's a circle. It's in the middle. And then it has arrows coming out from about 20 different vectors where they're all pointing in different directions. And they're very, very small lines that are coming out. And he's like, does it feel like this is what your life looks like? And then he compares and contrasts that with a different circle and one long line that's going in a direction. It says a lot of us can feel like we are just doing movement versus progress, or we're just busy doing a whole bunch of different things. And this is, for those who've been listening for a while, they know my rant on busyness and how I hate that that's the thing that people say all the time. How are you? I'm busy. For what? So what? What does that mean? What is that getting you? What is that benefiting you? And so it was helpful for me to think in terms of an outcome, like focus and a pursuit. And we've probably all watched the Marie Kondos, or at least familiar with the concept of throwing away things and this concept of minimalism. And so he compares and contrasts minimalism with only having the bare essentials, or trying to get rid of things just for the sake of trying to get rid of things versus focusing and building your life around what is essential.
So it seems like some of the significant challenge of that is finding that unifying purpose. If we go back to the align analogy, or in what you were just saying, what is the purpose or direction that we're trying to be essential about in order to get there? What was it that you've learned about that over the past 8 years?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me has been realizing that I don't have to do it all. I don't, FOMO.
Okay.
Fear of missing out.
Yeah.
That concept, heavily prevalent with me back then. Now it's that's fine. I don't need to be there for that. I don't need to be involved in that. And it helped me do a lot of heart exploration of why do I feel the need to be involved in everything? Or why do I feel the need to say yes to things? Some of it's obligation. Some of it is genuine desire to be part of something. But what's most important, what's most essential for me now? And a lot of this came up as Victoria and I were starting our business too, where it was we had to, out of just necessity in order to start a new business, say no to just about everything that was painful. There were some things that we said no to that we absolutely should not have said no to. But that was learned through a lot of that. We made some choices we shouldn't have made with that. Like we stopped, because our business was open on Sundays. We didn't have a choice on that. And so we weren't able to go be with our church family on Sundays. And so like now that like we've been out of that, and even when we had our business, we were able to have people that could handle the stores for that. Like it's such an important part of our lives now that we know that it's necessity.
Yeah.
But throughout that process, I learned what's bare minimum, what's bare essential, and what am I wanting to contribute my time, energy, and effort towards.
Yeah. So what was it costing you, and what God had for you before you were learning this, before you were applying this essentialism?
I think so much of it was, what am I trying to prove to myself? That I can be involved in everything and I can do everything. I think that's why I'm so passionate about that topic now.
Yeah.
But also, I think it was costing me a lot of like my sanity, because my brain was frazzled all the time. Like I didn't have time to space. I had no margin.
Yeah.
People would want to spend time, and I would just say, I don't have time now, or I'd try and squeeze it in and it wouldn't work, and it would be mismatched and focused. I'd be in two different places at the same time, essentially, mentally.
Okay.
And so I wasn't able to be fully present with somebody.
Yeah.
And then through taking the classes and learning the skills from EMI, it was knowing that there has to be margin. I have to have margin if I want to be in people's lives and have people know and see me and love me.
Yeah.
Like to see what's actually going on so they can know who Chris actually is. And vice versa. So I can know who my friends actually are and spend time exploring their lives and not just a passing or a glancing thing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us have this desire to spread ourselves really wide and not have much depth in things. Okay. That there's pieces and morsels. I think I've mentioned it, like snacking versus feasting. Like we're gathering all these snacks from all these different places and nothing's actually like satisfying.
Yeah.
Including our relationship with God. That's just one more thing that we try and fit in instead of centralizing our life around that.
Okay.
And so essentialism, it's been really helpful for me to just think about, how do I say no to things that are not going to help me accomplish the bigger purpose?
Right.
Or even in our analogy of what we've been talking about with EMI and the Human Project, we have people coming to us all the time that are suggesting ideas, and they're good things.
Right.
But it's, okay, how much distraction is that going to take from our main mission and what we're trying to do with people?
Yeah.
And so there's this freedom to be found. Once you gain the courage to do it, there's this freedom to be found in this very, very special word. It starts with an N and ends with an O. And there is nothing in between.
It's such a simple word. How is that so hard?
Yeah, 2 letters. What makes that so hard? Because I know this is something that you've brought up before, and it's a challenge of saying no.
No, it's not. Oh, I just did it.
You did it. Woohoo! Progress.
I mean, I think that is part of the heart issue that you're talking about there. So my answer is a deep heart issue that may be different for other people. Just want to acknowledge that as I'm sharing this. For me, a lot of it is because I'm particular. I have a belief that I'm struggling to let go of, that I must satisfy other people's expectations. So it's my responsibility. I'm over responsible, and it's guessing at what other people's expectations are combined together. So if it seems like somebody's asking me to do something, then the answer has to be yes in that belief system right there. And if I say no to that, then they may not like me anymore. There may be a whole bunch of negative consequences, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
So that kind of breaks all of that. For me to say that very, very simple 2-letter word no actually feels extremely dangerous in that. But again, it reveals, just like you're saying, those belief system scaffolding things that are under there that go like, I must say yes to anything anybody asks me. And in fact, I often will go further than that, unfortunately, and say I must prepare so that I have already done before somebody has to ask me for something, which,
Wow.
the frenzy and all that stuff you were describing earlier, that's the place that ends.
Yeah.
That's an impossible task. I can't satisfy my own expectations, let alone try and guess what everybody else's isn't satisfied. Though that's not God's intent. That is definitely not, to do that is not human.
Yeah.
In God's design.
Yeah. I think it can very much be a thing of frenzy. And then what it ended up costing me was joy. I didn't feel like I was able to enjoy anything. Everything was so much more, what are the demands that I'm placing on myself and others are placing on me?
Yeah.
That it became something where I was just going, like you said, a human doing versus a human being.
Right. Yeah.
So in the book, what he contrasts are a couple different things. One is all things to all people, which is actually a biblical reference, which is funny because Paul says I was all things to all people in order that I might win some. And the other is less but better. So like you talked about trying to figure out what everybody's expectations are and do that and try and be everywhere all at the same time. I don't think that's what Paul means when he uses that phrase. He means fitting in culturally, being able to be malleable and agreeable with people, listening, understanding, so that. And then what McKeown talks about is less but better. That because you're not trying to do everything all at the same time, you can focus on a couple things and those things become really potent for you. They become an outpouring of who you are. So like the things like some of the things, like I've mentioned this before, things that are high priority for us are our job within space and time. We have that thankfully very, very well kept. Our church family. And so what we can do there when opportunities arise with that, we know that is a priority for us. So we can do those things and do those things well. Then he compares and contrasts the undisciplined pursuit of more with the disciplined pursuit of less. Because it doesn't take us much. It doesn't take us any analysis to just say yes to something.
Right.
We'll talk about this in our software development world, product development world all the time, where it's really easy to just say, yes, we'll add something or a feature request to our ever-growing list of things that we're going to do. But it actually takes more work to say no, because that's going to cost us something. So what's the trade-off, going back to the trade-offs conversation that's there?
Well, saying yes costs us something too. It's just we pay it later.
Yeah.
And it's probably hidden.
Yeah. It's easy to say now, harder to do later.
Right. I'm curious if you think back to when you first read this book and you were just first starting to put it into practice, kind of empathize with somebody who is listening to this and getting this concept for the first time. This is just going to be difficult for them to start with, perhaps.
Yeah.
So what were some of those first steps like? How could they begin to apply this in ways that are helpful, but not so painful that they can't, sustain it?
Yeah. For me, it was really trying to figure out what were my goals. And I didn't really have any goals. It was just do the best I can at everything. And so a punchy way of saying this is you got to figure out what to suck at. I am okay that I am never going to be a great musician.
Okay.
I am okay that I am never going to be an announcer for the Cincinnati Bengals. These are all things that you probably never heard me mention that.
That's a new one.
Yeah.
For us.
If I had any job I could do, it would be announcing football.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I love football. And I just love to talk. That's why we have this podcast.
That one was not a surprise to me. Okay.
But realizing there's 100 different things that I'm never millions of things actually that I'm never, did I hit that too hard? That there's millions of things that I'm never actually going to do is actually freeing. Because we tend to think of closed doors as oh no, that's something I'm not going to do. But that's actually freeing. There is freedom to be found in choosing and limiting your options.
Yeah.
And that was a whole different concept for me when I first read the book. I'm like, don't I want to keep all my options open?
Okay.
It is freeing that I am married.
Whoa.
I love my wife so much. And not having to worry about all of the other things that are there. I could, it's approaching it from oh, well, this is the only woman I'm going to be with for the rest of my life.
He said in a disappointed tone. Yeah, right? Like,
yeah, it's such a
unlimited,
ridiculous way of thinking about it, but that's
Right.
how we tend to view so many options in our life. And so I think being okay with knowing that you're not going to do everything. And I think the biggest one that he had in the book was comparing and contrasting somebody that's not an essentialist. It's more of like an identity thing. What is my essentialist nature? Is living a life that doesn't satisfy versus being free to live a full life. And that's what we care about here at the Human Project. That's what Jesus talks about.
Yeah.
The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that they might live life and live it abundantly.
Yeah. To the full.
The full. Yeah. What does that mean? The full doesn't mean that everything that could possibly fit in goes in there.
Yeah.
It is this overflow of getting to experience what God continually keeps pouring in there. Not stuff that I'm stuffing in there, but it's what is God revealing and what is God calling me into. This is where that whole next step, taking the next right thing, comes into play. What does that look like from God's purposes? That, I think, was what really helped unlock a lot of the stuff that tied like this lattice work for me together.
Yeah. That is really an intriguing challenge. The abundant life, which of course Jesus said he came to give, is not our responsibility to produce.
Yeah.
I mean, of course it's not. That's like a duh statement. And yet you go like, yeah, no, I've tried to make that happen myself, actually.
Yeah. He didn't say, I have come that you might create your own life and you might create what makes it abundant.
Yeah. No.
I have come that you might have. Like that's a direct correlation and cause statement.
Right. And again, back to the other place in John, another place in John where he says, abide in me, for apart from me, you can do nothing.
Yeah.
Like the abundant life is clearly meant to come from him. And of course it is. But yet again, I look at my life and I go like, yeah, I try and make that happen.
Yeah.
I feel like it's my job.
And so I think taking this back, it's easy for us to look at that essentialist and like, I'll give the punchy answer. Like we try and fit Jesus in. And really like that's first and foremost, that is essentialistic.
I'm reminded of the budgeting approach of like, you get your paycheck, you put the money in savings first, and then you can spend the rest. It's that's a really reductive way of saying, or analogous, really reductive analogy to use here. But that kind of thing, like what's most important, put it there first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Zero-based scheduling, we might say.
Zero-based essentialism?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, but that's really the goal. And what this enables you to do, it enables you to be fully present with the things that you are doing.
Yeah.
Like just think of what that would look like. How would that feel if you were able to do that? Just pause and like the spots that you are there for, that you're there to be present every single moment. You're not worried about all these different things of what you're trying to juggle, but you're just able to be one place at a time, be present.
Yeah, fully present. I would say again, like we say in most episodes, like let's talk about community, let's talk about God. And I'll just say the first things that come to mind for me regarding this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts too, since you've walked it out longer and better than I have. You're further
learning.
on the road.
Yeah.
But community is a great way to be challenged in this, like much of the way that you have appropriately, lovingly provoked, right? In challenging, like, is that really essential? Is that really necessary? And sometimes the first thing you hear is absolutely, but the gears are still going. And the second thing would be, I think a really provoking question of God would be, God, what do you want me to say no to? Like, what do you want me to let go of might be another way of saying that.
Yeah.
To not do right now, at least. Like that I think would be the type of question, again, that God loves to walk into to answer, to say, oh, well, I'm glad you asked. Let's talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what comes to mind for you in those two things and dealing with this in community and under God's covering?
I love the question. I would also apply that in a community setting, because the people that know you best, if you are being real and being honest and being vulnerable with them, they're going to have opinions. Doesn't mean that they're always going to be the right things to do, but at least it's input. Ask them, what things are you saying that I'm investing my time in that's not worth it? This was actually like, I've had friends in my life that have brought that up to me unprovoked. So I didn't like it at first.
Yeah. This is not usually the, oh, yay, someone's told me to stop doing something.
Yeah.
That's not how it goes usually.
But it got me to really analyze, like, why was I doing what was I doing? Why was I doing what I was doing? There we go. That's why I meant to say that. Why was I doing what I was doing? And so that got me to ask, what's my goal? What's my purpose? I'm a very purpose-driven person. So almost everything pours out of some kind of goal or intent or objective of what I'm trying to achieve or what I'm trying to partner with God on. And that was really helpful. So ask people that are in your life, like, what are you seeing that I'm investing in that's not worth it? And this is going to actually reveal so much heart work for us. Like, even if I just use parenting, like, hey, you're in sports practice 5 nights a week. And I know you haven't been able to come to our house church because your kids have been in sports practice. What's so important about that I wanted to do? Maybe it's we find them something that they have a practice 1 night a week and a game a night a week. Going to be really unpopular for bringing that one up.
Yeah.
But like, what's driving all these things?
It pushes on that. What's behind it? What's the force behind this? Because anytime there's a resistance, there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to have heat and friction because there is resistance. Yeah.
And this is where good conflict comes into play. Talk about this in our conflict class. Conflict is not all bad.
Yeah.
It can be iron sharpening iron. It can be forging of steel and melding of gold and refinement that's happening there. And this is really what, like, if you want really good community, this is a great way to bring that up. Is it scary? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's intro to Essentialism 101 with Professor Conlin.
For more on this topic.
Yeah. Oh, please, if you want to talk about this, I would love to talk about this. Feel free to check out the book, Essentialism. I'll reference it in the show notes as well. But yeah, it's been really helpful for me, even just applied to my life as a believer. So thanks for exploring that with me.
Yeah. Thanks for walking us into what's been so powerful for you in the past 8 years.
Yeah. I felt like the book review podcast. A bit of practice.
Right.
Yeah.
And in chapter 7.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I really like what he talked about. Yeah. Thanks for exploring that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey folks, thanks for listening today. Our team is made up of myself, Chris Conlin, Mark Wavle, and our lead editor is Derek Donley. We are a crowd-funded nonprofit, and our free resources exist because of generous support from people like you. If you'd like to learn more about what we're about, go to humanproject.us, join us for classes, check out other episodes of the podcast, or if you want to, feel free to support us and donate financially. We'd really appreciate that. It helps us be able to sustain that. If there are topics or things that you're interested in us talking about, email us at info@humanproject.us.